Personal responsibility is the foundation of a meaningful and well-structured life. Without it, you are merely drifting, blaming external forces for your misfortunes while neglecting the role you play in shaping your own existence. Too many people walk through life burdened by resentment, convinced that their suffering is caused by society, their upbringing, or pure bad luck. While external circumstances can certainly be difficult, they do not absolve you of the duty to take charge of your own life. You are not just a passive observer of your fate, you are its primary architect. If your life is not where you want it to be, the first and most crucial step is to stop making excuses and start taking ownership. Blaming others might bring temporary comfort, but it does nothing to improve your situation. It is an avoidance mechanism, a way of evading the uncomfortable truth that your choices, habits, and mindset contribute to your struggles. When you point fingers at the world, you surrender your own power. If everything is someone else's fault, then you have no control. And that is a dangerous belief to hold. True strength comes from accepting that, while life is unpredictable and often unfair, you have the ability to shape your response to it. Taking personal responsibility does not mean punishing yourself for past mistakes or feeling guilty about your current struggles. It means recognizing that from this moment forward, you have a say in how your life unfolds. If you are unhealthy, start making better choices about what you eat and how you move. If your career is stagnant, seek out new skills, apply for better jobs, or work harder at what you already do. If your relationships are dysfunctional, examine your own role in the conflict before blaming the other person. This is not easy, but it is necessary. One of the most powerful ways to practice personal responsibility is to set your house in order, both literally and metaphorically. If your physical space is chaotic, it is likely that your mind is as well. Start by organizing your immediate surroundings, developing discipline in small ways, and building routines that foster stability. When you take responsibility for the small things, you develop the capacity to handle bigger challenges. Over time, this strengthens your sense of control, allowing you to take on even greater responsibilities. People who reject personal responsibility often live in a state of perpetual victimhood. They wait for someone to save them, for circumstances to magically improve, for life to become easier. But life does not work that way. No one is coming to fix things for you. You have to do it yourself. The sooner you accept this truth, the sooner you can begin making meaningful progress. This is not a burden, it is an opportunity. The power to improve your life is in your hands, and that is an extraordinary realization. By embracing responsibility, you step into a position of strength, creating a life that is not dictated by chance, but by your own deliberate actions. Chaos and order are two fundamental forces that shape not only the world, but also our individual lives. Order is structure, stability, and predictability. It is the foundation upon which we build our lives. Chaos, on the other hand, is unpredictability, uncertainty, and the unknown. It is the force that threatens to dismantle the structures we rely on. Life is a delicate balance between these two forces. Too much order, and we become rigid, stagnant, and blind to necessary change. Too much chaos, and we become overwhelmed, lost, and incapable of functioning effectively. The challenge, then, is learning to navigate between these two extremes, to bring order to the chaos without suffocating growth and adaptation. At an individual level, chaos manifests in many ways. It appears in the form of procrastination, disorganization, bad habits, unhealthy relationships, and neglected responsibilities. When you avoid necessary actions, when you refuse to confront your weaknesses, when you ignore your responsibilities, you invite chaos into your life. And chaos does not remain passive, it grows. A small disorder today, left unchecked, becomes an uncontrollable disaster tomorrow. Think about how a small leak in a house, ignored for long enough, leads to the collapse of the entire structure. That is exactly how chaos functions in your personal life. The small things matter. When you let them slide, you open the door to greater suffering. But chaos is not entirely the enemy. It is also the source of potential. Every great change, every moment of growth comes from a period of chaos. It is the discomfort of learning a new skill, the struggle of breaking old habits, the uncertainty of venturing into new territory. If life were purely ordered, if everything were predictable, easy, and stable, you would never grow. Growth requires stepping into the unknown, confronting the things that frighten you, and voluntarily facing the parts of life you'd rather avoid. The key is not to eliminate chaos entirely, but to engage with it productively. Bringing order to chaos starts with taking responsibility. You must recognize where disorder exists in your life and take deliberate steps to correct it. If your room is a mess, clean it. If your finances are in disarray, create a budget. If your relationships are failing, have the difficult conversations necessary to repair them. Small actions, repeated consistently, create structure. The more structure you build, the more control you gain over your life. But this control is not about dominance. It is about competence. It is about becoming someone who can face chaos without being consumed by it. When you structure your life properly, you become resilient. You develop the ability to handle setbacks, to adapt to unexpected challenges, and to create meaning even in difficult circumstances. You will never fully eliminate chaos, nor should you try. Instead, your goal should be to structure your life in such a way that you can stand firmly in the face of uncertainty, capable of bringing order where it is needed while embracing the change that leads to growth. Change does not happen overnight, nor does it come from grand, sweeping gestures. The truth is, real transformation begins with the smallest, most seemingly insignificant actions. People often look at their lives and feel overwhelmed by the distance between where they are and where they want to be. They think they need some monumental breakthrough, a dramatic shift, or a single defining moment to turn everything around. But that's not how it works. Instead, meaningful progress is built on the back of consistent, small actions, daily habits that accumulate over time and create massive results. The problem with aiming for radical transformation all at once is that it is unsustainable. If you suddenly decide to change everything, wake up at 5 a.m., hit the gym every day, eat perfectly clean, eliminate all distractions, and work for 10 straight hours, it's only a matter of time before you burn out. The pressure becomes unbearable. You miss one day, then another, and soon you find yourself right back where you started, frustrated and defeated. This is why small, incremental changes matter so much. They don't shock your system. Instead, they integrate into your life in a way that is manageable and lasting. Consider this: if you improve yourself by just 1% every day, that small percentage may seem trivial at first, but over the course of a year, that effort compounds. Just as tiny, consistent investments in a bank account grow exponentially over time, so too do small improvements in your habits, discipline, and mindset. The key is momentum. If you take one small positive action today, it makes it easier to take another tomorrow. Success builds on itself. The more you prove to yourself that you are capable of change, the more confidence you gain, and that confidence fuels even greater progress. One of the best ways to implement this idea is to start with something so simple that failure is nearly impossible. If your life feels disorganized and chaotic, don't try to overhaul everything at once. Start with something as basic as making your bed in the morning. This single act establishes order in your environment and sets a precedent for the rest of your day. If your health is a concern, don't attempt an extreme workout regimen overnight. Start by walking for 10 minutes a day. The goal is not immediate perfection. The goal is consistency. The same principle applies to mental and emotional growth. If you struggle with negative thinking, don't expect to wake up one day with a completely different mindset. Instead, practice small moments of awareness. Catch yourself when you start spiraling into destructive thoughts. Challenge them. Replace them with something constructive. It won't feel significant in the moment, but over time, this practice rewires your brain, shifting your perspective in a fundamental way. Massive transformations do not come from one-time efforts. They come from stacking small changes, day after day, until they become part of who you are. The biggest mistake people make is underestimating the power of the little things. A single step may not seem like much, but take enough of them, and you'll look back one day to realize you've climbed a mountain. The longer you ignore your problems, the more they grow, often in ways you cannot predict or control. Life is not stagnant. It moves forward, whether you are ready or not. If you refuse to face the difficult truths about yourself, your habits, your health, your relationships, or your responsibilities, those problems will not remain idle. They will compound. What might be a small issue today can turn into a catastrophic failure tomorrow. The price of ignoring problems is not just discomfort or inconvenience. It can be the very foundation of your life, crumbling beneath you. Consider the simple example of procrastination. When you ignore a task, it does not go away. It festers. A missed deadline leads to increased stress, which leads to rushed, lower quality work, which leads to consequences. Academic failure, workplace reprimands, or financial instability. What started as a small act of avoidance now dictates your future in ways you never intended. Now, apply this same logic to your personal development. If you neglect your health, skipping the gym or eating poorly for months or years, your body does not simply stay the same. It deteriorates. Bad habits take root, and soon you are dealing with obesity, chronic fatigue, or preventable illnesses. The same applies to mental health. If you ignore emotional distress, if you push away unresolved trauma or anxiety, it does not disappear. It manifests in destructive ways, perhaps in the form of anger, isolation, or even addiction. Avoidance is not a solution, it is a delay. And the longer you delay, the less power you have over the outcome. People think that if they do not acknowledge a problem, they can somehow escape it. But reality does not work that way. The truth remains the truth, whether you look at it or not. Imagine a small crack in a dam. At first it seems insignificant, but as time passes, the water pressure builds, the crack expands, and before long, the entire structure collapses. Had the issue been addressed early, a simple repair would have sufficed. Now, the damage is irreversible. This is the consequence of ignoring problems. The harsh reality is that life does not wait for you to be ready. The world does not stop to give you time to prepare. Your responsibilities, your health, your relationships, they all continue moving forward whether you manage them or not. The more you put off facing your challenges, the fewer options you will have when reality forces you to confront them. People who fail to fix their problems when they are small often find themselves overwhelmed when they finally have no choice but to act. And by then the price is far greater, sometimes beyond repair. The solution? Start now. Identify the problems in your life, no matter how uncomfortable or painful, and begin working on them. No matter how small the step, taking action today prevents disaster tomorrow. The cost of fixing a problem early is always lower than the cost of fixing it later. Ignore that truth at your own peril. Living truthfully is not just about speaking honestly to others. It's about aligning your thoughts, words, and actions with reality. People often deceive themselves, not because they are malicious, but because the truth is painful and facing it requires effort. But avoiding the truth does not make life easier. It makes it harder in the long run. Lies, no matter how small, accumulate. They create inconsistencies in your life, distort your perception, and weaken your character. When you live in falsehood, you begin constructing a fragile existence, one that will inevitably collapse when reality catches up with you. Consider what happens when you tell yourself that your bad habits aren't a problem. Maybe you overeat, procrastinate, or spend too much time avoiding your responsibilities. You justify it by saying, it's not that bad, or I'll fix it later. But deep down, you know that's not true. Every day that passes in denial makes the problem bigger, and before you realize it, you are stuck in a pattern that feels impossible to break. The weight of your avoidance grows heavier, and the damage becomes harder to undo. If you had been honest with yourself from the beginning, you could have confronted the problem while it was still manageable. Speaking truth is just as important as living it. Many people stay silent out of fear. Fear of judgment, fear of conflict, or fear of standing out. They go along with things they don't believe in, agreeing when they should disagree, nodding when they should speak up. This kind of dishonesty erodes integrity. It teaches you to betray yourself in exchange for comfort. But when you speak the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, you develop strength. You gain clarity. You become someone who others can trust, not because you tell them what they want to hear, but because they know you won't deceive them. Living with truth also means taking responsibility. It's easy to blame others for your failures, your parents, your environment, society, but that is a form of self-deception. Even if external forces have made your life difficult, pretending that you have no control over your future is a lie. You always have the ability to improve, to learn, and to change your situation, no matter how small the step. But you have to first acknowledge reality as it is, not as you wish it were. That means accepting your flaws, your weaknesses, and your mistakes, not with self-hatred, but with the intention of growth. Truth is the foundation of a meaningful life. Without it, you are lost. You become someone who drifts, someone who reacts instead of acts, someone who lives in the shadows of their own dishonesty. But when you commit to truth, when you refuse to lie to yourself or others, you build a life of strength, clarity, and real purpose. You become someone worth listening to, worth following, and worth becoming. So stop lying, face what needs to be faced, and start living with truth before it's too late. You are far more capable than you think. The problem is that most people never truly test their limits. They live within self-imposed boundaries, believing that their weaknesses are permanent and that their abilities are fixed. But this is a lie. Growth is not only possible, it is inevitable if you push yourself in the right direction. The mind and body are designed for adaptation, and with consistent effort, you can become someone far greater than who you are today. Many people carry around a deep sense of inadequacy. They look at their failures, their past mistakes, and their shortcomings, and they let those define them. They say, I'm just not good at this, or I could never do that, without ever truly trying. They see challenges as threats rather than as opportunities to grow. But what if you reframed that mindset? What if, instead of seeing difficulty as a sign that you should stop, you saw it as a signal that you are about to improve? Think about how human beings learn. A child doesn't walk perfectly the first time they try. They stumble, they fall, and yet they get back up. And each time they do, they get better. Adults are no different. The problem is, somewhere along the way, people stop allowing themselves to fail. They avoid discomfort, stick to what they know, and never push beyond their comfort zones. And when you avoid struggle, you also avoid progress. You are capable of handling far more than you believe. Look at history. Look at the people who overcame immense hardship, suffering, and difficulty. They weren't born extraordinary. They became extraordinary through persistence and discipline. And you have that same potential within you. But to access it, you must be willing to put yourself in situations where you are tested. You must be willing to do things that are difficult, uncomfortable, and even painful, because that is where real strength is built. One of the biggest obstacles to realizing your potential is the way you speak to yourself. If your internal dialogue is constantly negative, if you're always telling yourself that you're not smart enough, not strong enough, or not capable enough, then you will believe it. But what if you changed the narrative? What if you told yourself, I can figure this out, or I am capable of more? It may sound simple, but the way you speak to yourself matters. It shapes your reality. Start by setting a small challenge for yourself, something just outside your comfort zone. Maybe it's waking up an hour earlier, committing to a workout routine, or tackling a difficult project. And when you succeed, even in a small way, you will start to see proof that you are capable of growth. You will build confidence, and that confidence will compound over time. The truth is, you don't even know what your limits are because you've never fully tested them. So stop assuming that you are weak, incapable, or stuck. You are far more powerful than you think. The only way to prove it is to start acting like it.